Are we really ready now?
We're good?
We're good.
Hi, welcome to Live with Barb and Ray.
I'm Barb.
And I'm Ray.
And we're having some technical difficulties this morning, guys.
Don't we always, though?
Well, it's because, no, we usually don't. But we kind of thought we were supposed to start, and then we didn't start, and now we're starting.
Yeah, we've done that the last 2 or 3 times, so we do.
Guys, we really want to do a blooper video.
Yeah.
I think it would be classic. Like, we have some really funny things that have happened in here.
It'll have to be R-rated, though, because
Okay.
a lot of bleeps. The black bar across my mouth.
Right? Okay, welcome. It's Friday. Thank God.
Yep.
Yes.
End of the week.
End of the week. So we have some important things we want to talk about today. We're really actually excited about these topics. And both of these topics come from our members letting us know that they need more education on these things. So the first one we're going to start with is a really important to real estate. It's important to realtors. It's important to everyone who lives in the state of California, quite frankly. And it is the
issue of rent control.
I was going to call it something else, but that may have needed to be bleeped out.
Okay.
So rent control and what realtors need to understand about rent control. And here's the thing that we need to really get across. It's not just rent control anymore. It's new fancy words.
Yeah.
Like rent stabilization. If you ever hear that word.
Same thing.
It's rent control.
Yeah.
Just cause eviction. Rent control. Relocation fees. Rent control. They're all forms of rent control.
And I think
so
the
what do we
most
want to tell
important part before we even start this is it's amazing when I read through different Facebook groups and talk to other realtors, how many realtors go, well, it might not be a bad thing.
Yeah.
No, it is a bad
thing.
And if you're a realtor, you should be against rent control. It's just plain and simple.
Yeah.
So what we have is CAR it's called a white paper, and it's a 19-page outline, more or less, of what CAR thinks the main issues are, and there's a lot of stuff we're not going to talk about in here. It's like how to go to your city council meetings and how to fight it and how to be involved in that kind of stuff. We're just going to more explain it today, but I'm going to start it off with just reading what is rent control. Rent control is a local or state law that specifies the maximum rent a residential landlord can charge to a tenant to occupy his or her property. It's as simple as that.
Well, and I love our government affairs director summarized it like this. She said, the rent control is the government regulation of rents charged to owners of residential property through price controls. Through the government essentially telling you what you can rent your property out for.
Yeah.
I mean, how anybody thinks that that's the answer to our housing supply issue is crazy. And that's the real reality here. The reason the rents are so high is because we don't have enough supply. As our director, Glenn Hellier, says, supply is the answer. Rent control is not the answer. It doesn't work. It fundamentally doesn't work. And it's been proven by multiple economists. I mean, they would say the one thing economists can all agree on is that rent control doesn't work. It's not the answer. Now, is it sad that rents jump up so high and people are priced out of neighborhoods and communities? Yes, we can be sympathetic to that.
Yeah.
But supply is the answer, not rent control.
So I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, but what the white paper says, alternatives to rent control. Number 1, create more affordable housing. How many cities are just trying to shut down Huntington Beach?
Yep.
Great example.
Yep.
Just trying to shut down any kind of new development. That's what we need, guys. Unfortunately, there's all the NIMBYs that are showing up to the meetings, and if you don't know what a NIMBY is, not in my backyard.
You want to be a
property.
YIMBY.
Yes, and NIMBYs, they own their property, nobody else can have theirs,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what it comes down to. Another alternative is housing-friendly policies, and then rental assistance programs.
Yeah.
So instead of cities talking just straight going to rent control, these are the things they should be talking about. How are we going to build more affordable housing for our...
Exactly. The other thing that I want to talk about is, the whole rent stabilization and just cause eviction. People don't quite understand what that is. Just cause eviction is essentially the government telling you when you can and can't evict a tenant. Currently, if you want to move back in your property or if you want to raise the rents with proper notice, like we talked about, you can do so. With just cause eviction, it gives you very few parameters that allow you to raise rent or evict a tenant or move back into the property yourself or decide that you want to rent it out to a family member and you want to change tenants. The just cause eviction rules would then limit that ability for you to be able to do that. And for instance, a tenant who's harassing other neighbors, you can't evict them anymore. A tenant who's got maybe some legal issues with, the police are constantly being called out because of something that they're doing, or their dog is attacking another dog. I mean, so many different reasons why that isn't a good tenant for you. You now wouldn't be allowed to change tenants.
And I don't even want to say it this way, but that sucks.
Right?
It totally sucks.
It does.
It's your property.
Yes.
You should be able to
Yes.
have control of your own property.
Yeah.
And we haven't even talked about the boards. If rent control comes in, then they're talking about putting together rent control boards.
Yep.
And then if you want a rent increase, you have to go in front of this board to
Yeah.
tell them why you want an
Yeah.
increase. You want to evict somebody, you got to go in front of this board to
Right.
tell them why you need to. It's just more government
It's
bureaucracy.
a snowball effect.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is when people don't understand, okay, why does rent control end up being bad for cities? And, CAR tells us in this, when you're talking to councils and panels, don't mention other cities. But we want to give you some examples as realtors, because that's who our, viewer is right now. Santa Monica. Is Santa Monica affordable? San Francisco. Is San Francisco affordable?
I think they're on the list of the most expensive places to live.
Exactly.
And why does that happen? It happens because as soon as rent control starts being talked about, what are landlords going to do?
Raise the rents.
Raise the rent. Or sell their buildings. But if a building is worth $2 million and rent control starts being proposed and that landlord just says, I don't want to deal with this, how much is that building now worth when it's probably not sellable because nobody's going to go in to buy a property knowing that rent control is being proposed. So it hurts property values. It makes landlords eliminate their rentals. So then the amount of rentals that are out there, they go, we're not going to deal with this. They start selling properties or they convert to condos. That's But
very common.
Now there's restrictions where they're trying to write in there, if you're rent control, they make it so that you cannot convert to condos.
And then they want to have you pay relocation fees to the tenants that you're basically relocating. And some cities have proposed astronomical amounts for that are just mind-boggling. Sometimes 3 times the rent that the person was paying. You're going to pay them in relocation fees. And the last thing that all of this does, and if you drive through any city that's rent-controlled, you'll see this. It literally disincentivizes a landlord from fixing up a property. Because if I'm going to fix up a unit and completely gut it and remodel it, I'm going to expect that I'm going to be able to collect more rent. Just like
I gotta do this. You got a hair in your mouth.
I know, and it's bugging me. Thank you, Ray. You're so kind. Just like if I fix up my home for sale, I expect to get more money. Well, guess what? If landlords can't collect more money for remodeling the property, they're not going to remodel the property. They're going to do the bare minimum to keep it clean and safe. They're not going to improve it to where someone's going to want to move in and have a nicer unit. And that's probably one of the biggest reasons rent control causes these cities to not look the same as they did before.
And that lowers the amount of people working in the city, contractors that are out there working, so bringing in sales tax for the city, bringing in other outside revenue.
Like we talked about, it's a snowball effect. One of the reasons we're making such a big deal out of this is if you are a Long Beach realtor or in the Long Beach area, you did receive a Pacific West Association of Realtors red alert yesterday, and it is a very important red alert. April 2nd, next Tuesday, the City of Long Beach Council is going to be hearing a staff report on this exact topic, except for the really rent control pricing piece. But rent stabilization, just cause eviction, relocation fees, things of that nature. And they're going to be hearing a report. What they're going to do with it, we don't know yet. We don't know if they're going to send it to committee. We don't know if they're going to receive and file it. We don't know if they're going to take some kind of action on it, or if they're going to kick it back to the staff to come basically tell the staff, come back with a solution. The reason we put that red alert out is we do need you to contact your council people in Long Beach if you are a resident of Long Beach, or quite frankly, if you are a realtor in Long Beach, but maybe you live in another city, but you sell primarily in Long Beach. This is important for you as well. We would love as many realtors to attend that council meeting on April 2nd. Our government affairs team will be there. They will be there in force, and they will be making our voices heard. We don't necessarily need thousands of us going to the mic, but just being there in a mass and being there to clap when you're in support of the comments is really important. So fortunately, I'm going to be out of town at an NAR conference. So I won't be able to be there. But again, our CEO and our government affairs team and a lot of our prominent realtors in Long Beach that are very involved at the association will be there. And this is why we're talking about it, because what we're realizing is agents, you guys, don't understand rent control. And frankly, guys, Ray and I got involved in the association about the same time. We didn't really understand it either.
No.
And so get yourself educated.
Make
Download
us proud.
this. Yeah.
Show up to this meeting.
Yeah.
Make us proud, guys.
Yeah.
Even if you're not from Long Beach and you're in Anaheim or Tustin or wherever, show up.
Well, there's threats in Anaheim. There's threats in Santa Ana. And that's when we talk about a snowball effect. If it happens in Long Beach, guaranteed the other large cities are watching and waiting. It sounds like they're sitting in the background, but they are. That's what they're doing. They want to see, okay, what's going to happen in Long Beach, one of the biggest cities in Southern California, or not the biggest city in Southern California. So what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
All the other
what
cities are
drives
watching.
me nuts about this, just truly nuts, that you can Google it and look at economists that have talked about it. Economists on both sides of the aisle all agree that rent control is only detrimental to cities.
It's not the answer.
But that's what I don't understand, that there's so much evidence that it doesn't work from other cities, but yet people still keep trying to do it. It drives me nuts.
You know, it's unfortunate because it's the tenants that hear it and think, oh, great, my rents won't be able to be raised more than a certain percentage, and I won't be able, you know, I'll be able to stay in my unit. Oh, that's the other thing Phil Jones was talking to me about yesterday. The other negative to rent control, and sorry, we are major squirrels today, but the other negative to rent control is that tenants won't move out of their units. So it also prevents home ownership because people aren't motivated to go buy a home, but more importantly, it causes less vacancies in the area. So people have nowhere to live in the area because no one's leaving their units. No one's looking for a nicer unit, a better unit, a different unit to buy a home. They get stifled in this, well, my rent's, you know, only going to go up a certain amount each year, and they get very comfortable, and then they don't leave their unit, and it doesn't allow for new families to move into the area, or new families, new people.
To the point of creating, I believe it said in here, it creates a leasehold estate where somebody lives there, and then maybe they are going to move out of state, but they sublease it to somebody they know, and it keeps it going. So it just, the whole thing.
If you haven't gotten the gist here, that what we wanted to do was educate you. We wanted to come with a few talking points. We're going to include this in the show notes, as they like to call it. So we'll make sure that you guys all have a link to this, because it is a really, really good explanation of rent control in very simple language. Because here's the deal. You need to be able to talk to your clients about why it's not good, because some of them may think it's good. And what I've learned is when I'm educating my clients and when I'm educating other realtors and even tenants, you know, when we push back the threat of rent control in Long Beach, our association put all that effort behind pushing back those signatures. Once we educated the tenants, they didn't want to sign it anymore. They actually do understand what that means for them. And so that's what we wanted to do today with you guys, is make sure you're educated, watch this over and over again, educate yourself, read up on it, because education is power.
Yep. And one of the things that I want to just point out that it says, the best way to combat it is be super involved. I'm on planning commission in my city, and being at the forefront of that kind of stuff, trying to be on your city council, trying to be in committees in your city, be involved so that you get to know the mayor and your city council members and the people that when these kind of issues come up, you can make a phone call.
Absolutely.
And that's what I love about what we do here at PWR and CAR, because we have become friends with a lot of our local politicians, congressmen and assembly people, and so we can call them directly and say, hey, we're against this, we need your support. And so,
well, and the last thing is Prop 10 was very clear. Guys, Prop 10, when the constituents of California pushed back Prop 10 and voted it down, that was saying that we don't want regulation of that kind of stuff in our state.
And that's another thing that drives me nuts. Now they're just pushing it on us again.
I know. Good news is CAR is behind it. We're sponsoring a lot and supporting a lot of great bills in this legislature. Everything from a possible first-time homebuyer tax credit to incentivizing with transportation things and corridors, and to incentivize affordable housing. And we're really working hard at a state level to try to help this all over the state of California. Because again, as Glenn Hellier says so eloquently, supply is the answer. It's like we should have like bumper stickers that say supply is the answer.
I put one on my car.
Right? Or a pen that says supply is the answer. Okay, the second thing I want to just kind of bring up and educate you guys on, because I've experienced this firsthand, is, and also talking to Lori, who, as you know, is one of the smartest humans in this building, is the topic of procuring cause.
Yep.
And, you know, I've been selling real estate 17 years, and I'm learning so much about procuring cause. And what we're learning is realtors aren't educated on procuring cause. And essentially, let's summarize what procuring cause is. Procuring cause is who technically is eligible or should receive the commission on a sale if more than one realtor was involved in bringing that buyer to a property, and who caused the sale to happen, essentially, is what procuring cause is. And I think most realtors have been trained, and quite frankly, I had been trained, that you should just ask if a buyer comes to you and they were working with another realtor, you would say, Ray, did you sign a buyer broker agreement with your realtor? And you would say, no. And most realtors stop there. And they think because Ray didn't sign a buyer broker agreement with his realtor that he had before, or an agent he was working with before, that's enough. And what we're learning is it's not. And we're having a lot of arbitration cases come through the association for procuring cause. We're having a lot of questions come into the association on procuring cause. And what we're learning is that realtors don't understand that procuring cause is a multiple factor test. These are all the different possible scenarios and who it maybe favors. And the issue with procuring cause that I'm learning is you can do the transaction and the other realtor identifies after it closes that you closed escrow with who they thought was their client, and it could take 6 months or even longer for them to bring a case to the association, and then you have to come in for a procuring cause hearing or an arbitration hearing, and you could lose your commission 6 months later just because you didn't ask enough questions. There's no cut and dry answer to this.
Yeah.
There is no right and wrong. There is no yes and no. And that's why we're so passionate about educating you and getting you educated.
And if you notice, I'm very quiet right now because she's teaching me. I'm just kind of like, really? Huh?
Well, okay, let me give a good example. A good example would be Ray comes to me and wants to buy my listing and says, I want to see your listing. And if you've been trained or if you understand this industry, you typically ask, are you working with an agent? And Ray says, no, not anymore. That's red flag number one. And I might ask the question, what I'm learning to ask from John Giardinelli is specifically ask, have you seen this property before?
Yes.
Yes. Uh-oh. That's flag number two. He's already seen my listing. Well, what's your relationship with the agent that you saw my property with?
They're an old friend of mine.
So you're not interested in working with them?
No.
Did you sign any kind of agreement with them?
No.
Have you let them know that you're no longer wanting to work with them?
No.
What's their name?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to describe here is
ask
questions.
Yeah.
Once I find out that he's been working with another agent, remember, buyers aren't required to abide by the same rules that we are. And so what we're learning and what I'm learning is that the next step would be for me to call that agent that Ray was working with and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Fernandez came to me and want to buy my listing at 123 Main Street. I understand they've already seen it with you. What's going on here? That agent could say a few things. They could say, oh my gosh, Mr. and Mrs. Fernandez are driving me crazy. Please take care of them. Great. Go write the offer. They might say, I was waiting for their lender to call me back to give me the pre-approval letter. I was going to write the offer this evening. Red flag.
Yeah.
Red flag, right? Red flag in that you might need to stop and then call this agent and say, what are we going to do about this? Or go back to the client and say, you got to choose. All we're saying is ask questions. Don't just assume, and just not having a buyer broker agreement is not enough. And I know this is going to shock a lot of people, and I just spoke to Lori Smith before I walked into this room, and she confirmed everything that we're talking about and the importance of, if we become a little bit more educated, talk to your broker, get training, and most importantly, the association is going to be doing some deep dive training on this because we're realizing the industry isn't educating.
I'll be at those classes.
Right? Well, the reason I've learned so much about it is I do sit in the procuring professional standards trainings with our association attorney, and he trains us on how to handle these things. And so he does some role plays, and that's where I learned the couple extra questions you can ask, like calling the other agent, because wouldn't it be better to work out a referral fee with the other agent ahead of time than losing your entire commission 6 months later? Because it could happen, and it does happen. And that's why this factor test says favors. It favors the initial broker or the closing broker, and it goes down a whole list of questions that the panel is going to look at to try to determine who has procuring cause. I'm long-winded today. Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so is this a new one though?
It's the importance, it's not new, but it's some things that can help us with this whole procuring cause conversation. And a lot of agents are afraid of having buyer-broker agreements.
Yeah, and that's how I am.
And that's where this comes into play. Is there's other options. You don't have to have the one that says if you buy with someone else, you owe me a commission.
Yeah,
there's
I
other
I was
options.
taking over.
No, I'm setting it up for you.
So it's as simple as that. I've never signed a buyer-broker agreement because I just don't like my buyer signing something that if they don't buy it with me and they buy with somebody else, they're going to owe me commission.
Yep.
So this is just pretty much it's the BRNN,
The
right?
BRNN,
and it's just saying that they are working with you. You have a working relationship, but there's no compensation spelled out in it. And I think that's kind of a nice, simple one.
You know, CAR in here talks about how it establishes in writing the terms of the contractual relationship between the buyer and broker, prevents misunderstanding about who's responsible for various elements in the transaction. It's a convenient way to make sure that our expectations match the buyers. And if buyers know up front what to expect from their agent and themselves, they can take appropriate steps to protect themselves. And then most importantly is it has a clause in there that says, hey, if you don't want to work with me anymore, you're going to tell me in writing. Mm-hmm. Simple as that. But it doesn't hold you to a certain property. It doesn't hold you to compensation. But like we've learned in arbitration and our association counsel would advise you, something in writing is better than nothing. This may not even hold up in a procuring cause hearing, but it will help show that you had a contractual relationship with your buyer.
I think it's just a good way to, when you have your initial buyer
consultation
to just say, hey, this is how real estate works. So that's what I like to do, explain it to them. And if you're going to buy a house, you're going to buy it through me, and any property you see, you call me. I handle it. You don't talk to any other realtors. And it's just a good way of explaining.
Setting
and
expectations.
Say, so if that all sounds good to you, sign this for me. I'm going to be your agent from here on out. Yeah. And if something happens and you don't want me to be your agent, just let me know, and we will terminate the agreement.
And there's no compensation involved. There's no penalties involved. Yeah. Again, it's a form that I wouldn't have even known existed. It's the BRNN. If I didn't go through all this training that I'm going through and all the things that I'm learning, and that's the whole point of the Live with Barb and Ray show, is to educate our members, and we've done a lot of that today, and learn at the same time, right? We learn by sitting here. They say the teacher learns the most. I know, it's it's okay, we're having fun today. Yep. We have a couple of events we need to talk about.
Yeah, so on June 5th, we have our Agent Summit coming up, and our Agent Summits have been like selling out and crazy full. So phenomenal. As the invitation comes out, which is it already?
Not yet.
Not yet. So when that comes out, register right away, because I think we're going to start selling these things out.
I've already seen the speaker list, and it's pretty phenomenal. So.
And then we also have our Charity Golf Foundation tournament, and that's going to be coming up June 20th. Mm-hmm. And I believe emails are already out about that.
Registration
so sign
is
up,
open.
registration's open, and I believe we're doing pretty good on registrations.
Well, remember, our Charity Foundation is all about supporting first-time homebuyers and veterans. So all of the money raised from our Charity Foundation goes directly to that. It's a whole separate foundation here at our Association of Realtors, and it does really, really good stuff.
Yeah.
And then our last event is, I believe, next Friday, April 5th, is Wake Up with YPN. I don't exactly know where it's at. I believe it's at a Panera Bread somewhere in Seal Beach. But they're going to have Danielle Williams talking about security systems and safety for realtors and safety for your consumers and all the new stuff in technology with regards to protecting your property. And I personally know her, and she's pretty phenomenal. So she's with ADT Custom Homes, and so she's not the ADT every realtor knows where I'm going with this. Yeah. She is not an ADT contractor. She works for ADT directly. And so if you have any frustrations with the ADT reps who email you the second your transaction closes, she's a great person to talk to, because ADT really wants to know who those people are, because they're not supposed to be doing that.
Oh,
fun fact. Yeah.
Right.
So you might want to attend and meet her and maybe hear how we can stop that from the inside out, because it drives me crazy.
And before we leave, make sure you have your calendar marked for next Tuesday for this City Council meeting in
April
Long
2nd.
Beach, because let's make a good turnout.
It's a big deal. And if you're interested in reading the 243-page staff report, it's somewhere online, but it is frightening. It's pretty frustrating. Maybe not frightening. Frustrating is a better word. So.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
I think with that we're done. So stay classy out there, PWR.
You ended that pretty abruptly. It was like, no, like, slowing down, winding down. Well, that's why I'm still entertaining them if it's not done. We didn't have anything on our TV?
No.
Technical difficulties.
How long was that?